Welcome, adventurers. Today we're going to do something a little bit different. We're not going to talk about mechanics or do an analysis of a class or even talk about role-playing. Instead, we're going to talk about talking. Specifically, we're going to go over some kind of communication tips and tricks that I think can improve your sessions. A lot of this is, well, it's stuff I've picked up sort of from conference calls at work over the years, but I think they apply equally as well to in-person or online role-playing sessions. The first trick is to name things. Now, this happens when there are things that don't have a name. This could be number of doors or unnamed goblins in an encounter or even options that you're discussing. And I'm sure this sounds familiar. Oh, I want to target the goblin over there. No, not that goblin. The one that you were attacking. No, were you attacking that other one? No, you were attacking that first one. And then it takes 10 minutes to describe which goblin you want to attack. And in the course of that, you realize that other players in GM had been confused and they had attacked or taken hit points away from the wrong goblin, and it is just chaos. It's a pretty simple solution. Give them names. I've seen this done on Knights of Last Call, and it's as simple as using numbers, letters, colors, and applying them to your unnamed things on the battlefield. You got Goblin 1, Goblin 2, or Skeleton Blue, Skeleton Orange, something like that. You can, of course, use some actual names that would be a little bit more immersive, though sometimes that is a little bit harder to remember than simple things like purple, yellow. Now, this is a tip mostly for GMs when you are setting up those encounters, but it's also for players. If you are talking with the other players and you notice a lot of, oh, that one, no, which one again? Just go ahead and say, hey, can we just call them red, green, blue? And it'll improve things quite a lot for you. So that first tip was for things that don't have names and you're giving them names. This tip is for things that, well, have names, but you just don't know them. This happens a lot with your feats, whether they're class feats or ancestry feats, with items, with locations even. What you want to avoid is that classic line, oh no, I have a +1 because of my thing. Now, this is a tip mostly for the players, whereas the other one was mostly for the GM. This really is about knowing what your character does. I make a little cheat sheet for myself. For example, I'm playing as a bard, and it is a little tough to remember how all of my reactions and saves work, so I have a cheat sheet of basically every bonus that I get. So I know things like, well, due to the well-versed bard class feat, I have a +1 circumstance bonus to saves against auditory, visual kinds of things. Knowing the name, even if you don't fully remember the mechanics, means, well, you can look up the mechanics and save yourself a lot of time. Otherwise, you're just kind of telling your GM, no, I'm really awesome, I just can't remember why. All right, so we've had 2 tips about names so far, and this third one is also about names. I call this one, Say My Name. The scenario is you have typically your players conversing with themselves for a long time about a plan. Meanwhile, the GM is off prepping for the next session or the next encounter at least, or maybe retconning some things or distributing loot from the last session, or, all those kinds of extra things that a GM has to do. And the players have a super complicated question that they ask, and then they say, is that right, Dave the GM? And Dave the GM is just like, what? And then you have to repeat all of it. So this is very simple. Say my name. Say my name before the long question, and then that way you won't have to repeat yourself. And the last tip is something I call the peanut butter sandwich conundrum. Imagine this. Someone is over at your house and they say, hey, can I use your kitchen to make myself some food? And you say, sure, no problem. Let me know if you need anything. And they ask, yeah, where are your knives? So you point them to your knives, your steak knives, and your paring knife, and your butcher knife, and your chef's knife. And they're like, all of these are wrong. None of this is going to help out with what I'm doing. That'd be a bit confusing, right? Well, what if instead they said, can I use your kitchen to make myself a peanut butter sandwich? Now you know when they're talking about knives, they mean butter knives for the peanut butter and presumably jelly. When you know the overview, the objective, the ultimate goal, a lot of the details make sense. I see in Pathfinder the opposite of this sometimes, where when players are trying to come up with a scheme, they start with these super detailed questions, and you're just like, I mean, I guess that's correct, but I have no idea what you're trying to do. Or they're asking something that's maybe a little wishy-washy, and without knowing the context, you can't answer that at all. Here's an example scenario. Let's say you and your fellow players need to get into a house, and you suspect that there is a guard, or you know there is a guard at the front door, and you think there are going to be some other guards inside. And then someone asks you, hey, can't your character tap dance? You might be like, I mean, yeah, I've got a good performance and I do have dancing lore, but why would that come into play? I don't even really, should I even answer this with a yes right now? But what if instead they said, I propose we distract the guards with some sort of a street performance and try to take their attention away and then have other people sneak through the back door. Now when you're asked about your dance lore, now it actually makes sense. In this game with almost infinite possibilities, you are going to have almost infinite questions, and these are the sorts of questions that really only make sense when you know the context. So set that context, let everyone know you're gonna make a peanut butter sandwich. All right, well that is it for today, adventurers. I genuinely think that you can learn real-life communication skills by playing this game with your friends, and it's something you can actively work on. Have you used any of these tips? Did they work? Do you have other tips? Either way, let me know about it in the comments. And until then, make sure your fighter knows which group of goblins you're about to fireball, or don't, because it's gonna be funny either way.